Dear all, welcome to the course E698U Molecular Communication. My name is Abhishek Gupta and I will be your instructor for this course. In today's class, we will give a short introduction to what is molecular communication. We will talk about the content of the course and the course policies. Since molecular communication is a type of communication, I'll start this course with a short introduction to communication. We will discuss it in more details in later classes, but for students who do not have an EE background, I just want to give some information about the communication. So normally what communication means is the goal is to just send some information from one point to another point. And depending on how far these points are, what is the environment between them, you can use different kinds of methods. For example, if you can see each other, you can use some visual gestures like or some hand movements. For example, if you just want to tell some numbers, you can use your hands to convey the information. You can also use loudspeaker or just you can shout the message to the other person. And it has been the communication between two physically separate entities has been an important part of the human society. If you look at a previous example, there are many wars who are being won uh, based on how advanced their communication was. And today also, if you look at various application, there is medical industry and uh, uh, traffic industry, the taxis, all those depend on communication. And today, in today's world, when we have this pandemic, this communication is actually helping us deliver all the information to various part of the society. So the goal of communication system is to send some information from one end to another end. And what do we mean by information? Anything which the receiver does not know and it can help them, that is we call as information. Information can be an audio message, a phone call, for example, the content of a phone call, a decision, right? Yes or no, whether we should do this or not, a fact, a picture. All these are information. And many times the information is in the physical content itself. For example, if you look at an audio message, it's actually a physical signal which is being generated by the pressure, vibration and pressure. But all this information in today's digital world can be represented by a sequence of numbers. Or if you want to take the binary based system in terms of bits. If you look at picture, the picture is made from many pixels. Each pixel has a color value which can be represented by a sequence of bit. So overall the picture can be represented by the sequence of bits. The audio message also can be sampled efficiently, and at particular instances value can be encoded in terms of bits. So overall the audio message can also be represented in terms of bits. So many times when we talk about information, we talk about bits, right? How long the information is, it is in terms of 2 bits or 10 bits, 1 megabits. That is, so bits becomes kind of a unit of information. Now we want to send this information from one point to another point, uh, and you cannot just send one in joule directly. You, depending on the propagation medium, depending on how far these distance are, uh, how far these points are, and various other scenarios also, you have to first convert the information into some kind of physical signal, which can be transmitted. If you go back in the past, we do not have these bits. In that time, the information was itself a physical signal, and that people used to send by modifying it some bit. For example, if you want to send a audio message and if your loudspeaker, which is analog, it doesn't do any kind of processing, just it can amplify the message. So you can shout the message or you can use loudspeaker and the other person receives the physical signal representing the audio message. Similarly, you can show an image from the distance and people can look at these signals and they can understand what is being sent. But there are lots of limitations with such kind of communication method when you keep everything in the physical domain. For example, you cannot have a security there, right? If there are 10 people and you want to tell one information to only one person, there's no way you can hide it from others. Okay, you can use some kind of language which other people do not understand, but still it can be it can be tracked. So what people do it, they first convert the information to bits, right? And they kind of think that information, actual information and the bit representation, they are equivalent. So you can directly think about information in terms of bits. And then they convert those bits to the physical signal and then transmit it. If I want to look at the very simplest example, that will be telling a decision. Suppose you want to send the information where you want to tell others or your friends that your city is attacked. In the past, people used to lit these beacons, these lamps which are at the mountain to tell other people that something is going on, they need help. So there what you can see, there is information is only 0 or 1. 1 representing we have a problem, 0 means everything is fine. And then they encoded the information in terms of light. If the 1 is there, you will lit the lamp. And if 0 is there, you will not lit the lamp. And that's how the other person has this way of decoding this. There's a mutual understanding, and that's how the person will know. Right. So that was, of course, very simple way of communication, and that is not enough. If you look at the modern world's view, you have to send so much data. Uh, so uh, the communication performance is normally measured in terms of how much information you want to send. Data rates, bits per second, you can say. So if you want to, watch a movie, there is a particular number of bits you want each second so that you get a particular quality. And if the communication doesn't support that much speed, you will not be able to watch the movie. So if I look at the modern communication system to achieve such kind of speed and efficiency, they use some kind of electric or electromagnetic signals. And these signals can be from radio to optical bands. So what they do is they take the bits and generate electric or electromagnetic signals based on these bits, and then they transmit the signal. So if it's a wired signal, you can use electrical signal to transmit from one point to another point. If it's a wireless, you need to send these waves into the air. So you would need some kind of electromagnetic waves to help you in that. And then the receiver received this signal using some kind of antennas. Uh, Looking at the different signals, it tried to then understand what was being sent. So most of the communication has been centered around recently around this wireless signals. And so how do we characterize such systems, right? If I want to talk about the performance of a system, or if I want to know how can improve some systems, what people look at is this system as some kind of black box, which takes some signal and gives some output. So if you transmit a signal xt and the received signal is yt, so yt will of course depend on xt, right? If you change xt, the received signal will also change, but they're not exactly equal. Why? Because in between there can be various noises, where can be various environmental factors which can change the signal. Sometimes the signal can get lost also. So the relationship between xt and yt that depends on the environment between them, and that we call as channel. So channel kind of tell us a distribution of yt given xt. If I tell that this is xt, what will be the distribution of yt? Okay, we're talking about distribution because the factors may be random. Uh, you may not always see the same kind of disturbance. Right? That's why they are called noise, because they are random in nature. So if I want to talk about the performance of any channel, we will compute the distribution, and from this we can guess what will be xt. Right? If I know how the channel modifies xt to yt, once we have yt, we can guess what was xt. And based on how much noise is, people have talked about how fast they can send signals. So here you can see a very simple signal was sent, but it is distorted. But still you can guess from the signal what was the maybe the original one. If I told you that it was a sine signal, you could kind of guess its amplitude and frequency from the signal. So now we come back to something called nanomachines. Uh, you may be aware that this nanotechnology is a emerging field, and people are trying to work on in this nanoscales. So nanomachines are nothing but very small devices, and they're distinguished by one or more of the following criteria: size and functionality. So their size can range from the size of macromolecule to a typical size of a biological cell. And their functionality, because they're very small, you cannot have a lot of functionality in that. So functionality is limited to simple tasks such as simple computation, sensing and detection, performing some kind of chemical reactions, and very simple movement or actuation. So in short, nanomachines are a machine with nanoscale functional components. The machine can itself be a little bit bigger, but all the functional components are of the scale of nano. And it can be artificial or natural occurring entity. For example, if you look at all these natural entities such as cells or cellular organelles, they are of the scale of nano to uh, some micrometers. So they are itself the nano machines. If you want to talk about nanomachines from the engineering point of view, there are multiple ways people can think of these machines. First is you can have downsized electric devices. So you have different electric devices already in use, and you want to downsize them to make them equal to nano scale. Or you can generate the synthetic device with functional blocks which depends on the molecules. So they work on the molecular level. You can also have some kind of hybrid biological cells with engineered components. For example, you already have some biological cells and you try to add some features to these cells to help uh, perform a particular task. Or you can even make nano robots which are inspired from their model using these biological components. And sometimes they may even contain some kind of biological components. So of course, lots of devices methods here I'm talking about is futuristic. People are working on that. So this is not exactly a matured field. It's still on the emerging side. And that's why this field is very much interesting, and there's a lot of research opportunities in this field, which we'll talk about. So once we said that the nanomachines have very small functionalities, the question is, will they be of any use? So that is how there is a concept of nano networks. The nanomachines can come together, and each one has some functionality, but together they can perform complex tasks. Let's talk about one example, which is related to target drug delivery. So in the human body, suppose you want to deliver the drug to a particular place where it is needed. Normally, if you give the drug, it will reach to every part of the body and there's a lot of wastage. But if you can do target delivery, you can achieve the same efficiency with a very small dose. And it can be efficient because suppose the drug has some kind of side effect, so other cells are not affected from this. So one idea would be you will have thousands of these nanoscale robots which will be sent in the blood, and they will work as a swarm and take the drug to the exact position. But to be able to talk to each other, they of course need some kind of communication method between them. Right. So question is, how do you implement such kind of networks? How do you implement the communication between them? And there are various challenges in that. These machines have very limited energy reserves. Right. They you cannot feed them with battery. You cannot take them out and charge. It just need to go on its own. They are extremely small size, so having a device, EM-based device, which can communicate is uh, not feasible at the current technology. And again, since it's going to be in the blood, it need to be biocompatible. If you use some kind of elements which body rejects, then this will be a problem rather than a solution. So what are different methods which people have talked about for nano networks? The fundamental would be the conventional method would be EM communication. But again, I said it's very hard to make some these kind of devices. You have to go to very high frequencies, such that terahertz or even more, to be able talk on such nanoscale level. But again, this is on still on a research level. You can have acoustic communication where you try to communicate using the pressure waves. You have can have nanomechanical communication where the devices need to be in touch with each other. And the other method which we will talk about is what we call molecular communication, is communication via molecules, which is actually the focus of this course. And we will uh, basically talk about what is molecular communication. As I said, inspired by nature, because if you talk about some application in human body, that itself is a natural entity, and there is a lot of communication which goes on inside our human body, and we take inspiration from that. If you want to design some kind of nanorobots which will go into human body, we will try to adopt the method which human body use, and that is the use of chemical signals as carrier of information, which we call molecular communication. So use of chemical signals means chemical signals are nothing but the molecules itself. So you send a particular type of molecules in particular concentration that acts as a chemical signal, and based on that chemical signal, the receiver can understand what is being sent, what is the decision we want to, which is being conveyed to us. And it is the primary method of communication among microorganisms, including the cells in the human body. And in this specific environment, the reliability of molecular communication can be greater than radio-based communication. And in nature, as I said, chemical signals are used for communication, nanoscale, microscale, or even for long-range communications. So what is molecular communication? It is communication via molecules. You have a transmitter and receiver. Transmitter sends some molecules, right? It has information in it, so we call it information molecules. And it propagate via a medium. That medium can be liquid or air. And again, they are also made from molecules. But those uh, molecules by which the medium is made, they do not carry any information. So we just call them channel or media or just molecules. And when these molecules reach the receiver try to interpret what these molecules means, what kind of information they carry. Right? And that is how you typically do a communication between these 2 points. Let's just look at some example here. you have different cellular communication inside our body. Right? All of you know about hormone signaling. The hormones are very important chemicals in our body which regulate lots of uh, functionalities in our body. Okay, uh, if you talk about insulin levels, if you talk about different levels of different components in the body, those are all regulated by hormones. And the hormones are transmitted from some glands, and uh, they propagate via blood, and then they reach different cells. And there, depending on the level of these hormones, the cell makes a decision whether it want to transmit some, it want to send, release some kind of molecules, it want to do a particular action or not. And then this is one kind of cellular communication, but there are various different types of cellular communication which occur in the body. Uh, if two cells are in contact, then there can be a communication via gap junctions. If they are away, then there is extracellular space made from some liquid where the molecule can propagate. Between neurons, there is some kind of synaptic communication also going on. And endocrine system basically doesn't have its own separate communication guide. It has just use blood to send different molecules. Right? That is inside our body. But you know also that ants talk to each other using pheromones. That's how the ants may create uh, their ants may know where the food is. Similarly, bacteria also communicate with each other via molecular communication. They together can make all the bacteria express a particular type of gene, and they can also pass their genetic materials to each other. We'll talk about these particular examples in detail much, but most of us are aware that how different signaling happens in our human body. So this is, as we say, this is not new. This is going on in human body for a long time. But the question is, can we also engineer it and can we use it for our own information, your own benefit? So first thing we'll talk about here, how can molecules represent information? Right? They are just some molecules. So if you look at EM signals, which are used in conventional communication system, they have their amplitude and phase, right? And by knowing the phase rate, you can also know the frequency. So basically, there are two types of information which EM signals can uh, have. One is their amplitude and then their phase. And you can hide information in amplitude and phase. You can say that amplitude 2 volt is bit 1, amplitude 5 volt is bit 0. Or you can say that if you get a sine wave, this is bit 1. If you get a cos wave, that's a bit 0. So, and there are, of course, sophisticated method to do this in much more much more efficient way. But this in general is called encoding or modulation, where you want to hide information in the EM wave signals amplitude and phase. The question is, we do not have EM waves here. The molecules do not have phase. So how can we encode information into molecules? So one method will be simple on and off method. You send few molecules when you want to say one, and then you send no molecules otherwise. And if you have to send multiple bits, for example, you want to send 10 bits, you just divide into different slots. For each slot, you send bit one. It means you send few molecules. And if for that slot, the bit is 0, you do not send anything. And when the receiver sees some molecules, it knows that it is bit 1, and then when it doesn't, it knows the bit is 0. And of course, there are other methods available which we'll learn in this course. But for now, this is one way you can encode information into molecules. So let us see how we can actually artificially create it. So there is one lab example I'm going to talk about. And this is also a popular method in which natural cells communicate to each other. So we have a bunch of cells here, and what is done is they are stimulated to, one of the cell is stimulated to release the ATP, right? So you can uh, put some light on it, and using some mechanism, it release ATPs, right? And what are ATPs? ATPs are adenosine triphosphate. These are the molecules which carry the energy, and when and that energy is being used to carry out different functionalities of the cell. So when this ATP is released, that contains some information. Okay, here we are encoding the masses in terms of type and concentration of the molecule. For a particular type of energy intensity, there is a particular concentration of ATP is released. And if there was no ATP released, the receivers may think it's a bit zero. When the ATPs are released, they think there is some information is being transmitted. Now, how do they propagate? There are two ways they can propagate. One is external pathway, another is internal pathway. So when the ATPs are released outside cell, the receiver cell detects the signal, that they detect the ATP is there in the extracellular space. And as a response, they release something called IP3 molecules, which are inositol triphosphate molecules. And they are known as the calcium mobilizing molecules. What happened when the cells release this IP3 inside them, they reach the calcium ion stores, which is endoplasmic reticulum in this particular case. And these stores, when they are stimulated, they start releasing calcium ions. And then this IP3 will also go to another cell, and again, this kind of how it propagates. And the internal pathway would be when this ATPs are released, they also generate IP3. And then this IP3 passes to another cell directly via gap junctions. And when they reach other cells, they again stimulate the calcium to ion stores, and which release calcium ions. So as they propagate further to other cells, each cell starts sending, transmitting calcium ions. And that's how you can see in this example, it starts at one point and then it propagates to all the other cells. Right? And then this again, this calcium ions will can be used to further for further computation or further uh, further functionalities in the cell. Let us now talk about bio-nanomachines. They are a specific type of nanomachines which have biological matter. So these are made of biological materials such as protein, or it can be itself, a cell itself, or a hybrid of biological and non-biological materials. And bio-nanomachine basically can respond to input signals. Input signal can be in terms of chemical signals, by transmitting output signals, changing its internal state, or modifying its functionality. So let us look at some of the examples of naturally occurring bio-nanomachines. So first one uh, is proteins. So proteins are nothing but linear chains of amino acids. And there are different structures of protein. Uh, they can be classified into primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary structures. And the structure itself defines their functionality. There are various way a protein can be functional, such as its first uses as an enzyme. There it acts as a catalyst for various chemical reactions. It is also acts as a receptor to bind with ligands, and which can then generate some specific chemical signals. It also works as motor proteins, which are responsible for moving things from one point to another point. The other type of binary machine is DNA itself. So as you may be knowing that DNAs are linear chains of repeating units called nucleotides, and they store information as a sequence of nucleotides or bases, nucleus bases. And DNA contains multiple genes, and genes are basically a sequence of nucleotides, and they are responsible for synthesis of protein. So once a particular gene is expressed, the corresponding protein is synthesized via RNA. So we will talk about the proteins and DNA in detail in the later class. The third type of binary machine is vesicles. They are small containers of molecules enclosed by typically spherical lipid membranes, and their use is they either can perform a localized reaction, so they can bind all the molecules and the chemical reaction can occur inside them. They also act as a carrier, so the molecule can be bound inside them and it can move on from one place to another place. The complete cell itself is a binary machine because it has multiple functionalities. You may see that the different components act at different parts, such as mitochondria, as you may know, that it's work as a power source. The DNA act as a storage unit. So you can compare the complete cell itself as a binary machines. We will talk about these in detail in the later part of the course. Now let's talk about molecular channel. So we have seen in the past that channel is basically a relationship between input and output signals. Here molecule need to reach the receiver, and once they reach the receiver, based on their current state, receiver may decode information, decode the transmit information. Now the molecules can adopt various propagation methods, and the channel is significantly dependent on the propagation mechanism. So in wireless, you normally have only EM wave, and so channel model is kind of similar regardless of the exact communication protocol. But here, the channel depends on what kind of propagation mechanism is used. For example, one of the more popular propagation method is diffusion. Molecule can move via diffusion or Brownian motion from one point to another point. And there you can compute the probability that a molecule will reach the receiver, or you can compute the average concentration, which is actually the receiving signal at the receiver given the transmit signal. The another example is motor proteins. So these motor proteins can carry cargoes which consist of multiple molecules from one place to another place. There are other propagation methods such as reaction diffusion wave, diffusion with assisted flow, chemotaxis, and each of these propagation methods have a different way of the analysis, and they give rise to a different type of channel. Now, if I talk about the transmitter and sending mechanism, there are various ways transmitter can work. One popular way is that the molecule can be inside a vehicle, and it start budding, and then a separate vehicle is created along with the molecules, which is then released into the media. The other way transmitter can act is via gate channels. And again, depending on the propagation mechanism, depending on the release mechanism, there may be different mathematical models. So we will look at some abstract mathematical models of transmitters, and we will see how they model the sending mechanism in a tractable way. Same as there are various type of receivers also. One is ligand receptor mechanism, where the molecules come and attach to the receiver's membrane. There are also another way, there can be gap channels on the surface of the receiver which can also act as the receiving signal. We will see how we can model these signals mathematically. Now, if we talk about what are the main characteristics of molecular communication and how it is different than the wireless communication. So first is molecular communication is highly stochastic. It means that once you release the molecules in the media, they can go in any direction if there is no assistance there. And it may happen that they either reach the receiver very late or they may not reach at all. So it can have a very highly probabilistic channel and which can increase the error probability if the distance is significant. It has large communication delay, so you cannot have very high data rate at being achieved in molecular communication. It's also very short length communication. So you cannot have more than micrometers. Even micrometer is at a higher side. And here the coding is based on molecules. So you encode information in terms of molecules. The good thing is that it is biocompatible. It can be made biocompatible if you use the molecules which do not react with human body, do not create any kind of allergic reaction, then it will be biocompatible. It doesn't harm the body. It is energy efficient as other cells of the body. Uh, it requires very small energy to work. And some of the binary machine can actually help in self-replicating and self-organization of also. So you can expect them to grow or organize in a manner. Now, if I compare molecular communication with telecommunication, point by point, you can see in telecommunication, devices are electronic devices, while in molecular, they are binary machines. The signal type in telecommunication is either optical or electrical signal, which can also be electromagnetic signal. In molecular, use chemical signal, which means you use a stream of molecules. The type of information which is sent via telecommunication is digital. You send bits sequences. Here in molecular, you actually send a chemical or the physical state as a signal. The propagation speed is very high in telecommunications because if you use electromagnetic waves, it goes at the speed of light, while molecular communication is extremely slow. We will see some examples and we will talk about how slow it can be. Then the propagation rate of telecommunication is also very high. It can act from some meters to few kilometers. But in moleculars is basically in the range of millimeter to nanometer to micrometer or something of that order. The media telecommunication actually does not require, wireless does not require any media. It can actually go in vacuum also. And the wire telecommunication can be via cables, while molecular communication requires a wet media. It may have some liquid or air uh, to, to act as propagation medium in molecular communication. Telecommunication has a very high electrical energy, which is consumed, but in molecular is energy efficient. It requires small amount of energy. Now there are other different characterization of telecommunication, molecular communication, and they are significantly different from each other. Telecommunication is rather accurate, very fast, uh, uh, while the molecular communication is can be stochastic, it can be slow, sometimes it can be unreliable also if it's used at a large distance. Now let us look at some of the examples, applications of molecular communication. The first example we talk about is the targeted drug delivery, where you want to deliver a particular drug at one location. And suppose if drug has some side effect, if you target it at a particular location, you have to use less number of less amount of drug, and so it will uh, reduce the side effect which can be caused by the drug to other healthy cells. The other example can be in terms of health monitoring. So you can these small nanomachines can actually go into bloodstream and can detect the presence of biomarkers or pathogens, and then they can alert. They can also be used as a lab on chip. So you take a blood sample and automatically on chip there are molecular components which can detect and give a early diagnosis of the sample. And there are many other futuristic applications also which can be imagined. For example, you can generate, you can think that self-organizing property of such kind of nanorobots can help grow the artificial limbs or artificial organs of the body, as in regenerative medicines. They can also be used to modify genetic material, add or remove some components. Other than the biomedical application, there are other application of molecular communication also at a large scale. One is environmental monitoring. Suppose there are some toxic gases present in the which may be present in the environment. So you can release these small nanomachines which are propagating all around, and whenever they detect any kind of toxic elements, they can they can alert us. Right? So and some of this nanomachine can also be made to attach and degrade the toxic material. And industrial applications also, there are various industrial application in the uh, bionanomachine. For example, they can be, as an industrial application, they can be used to produce functional materials. So change in the environment may lead to movements of bionanomachines, which lead to the change in the global structure, modifying the functionality of the manufactured object. The other application can be in terms of information communication technology application, such as once you have these uh, nanomachine in the body, then they can be connected with the outside world via some kind of wireless methods. For example, there is a study of coexistence of terahertz and molecular communication, how they can club it together. So this molecular communication senses the harmful pathogens or the health state inside the body, and then it conveys information to the outside world via some kind of wireless methods. So such kind of body wearing application is possible. There's a molecular communication can also be integrated with silicon based device. So there are various application of molecular communication you can think of. Now, what are the research direction? Molecular communication is still an emerging field. There are many open research problems, and people in the past have looked at uh, specifically how to model the channels for various propagation mechanism. How do we analyze and model noise in the system? How to compute the relation between the output and the input in for a given channel? People also looked at information theoretical capacity of molecular communication. So, information theory basically provides you a kind of upper bound on how fast you can communicate, right? Or in mathematical terms, we define something called rate, which is maximum rate at which data can be reliably transmitted. So, information theoretical capacity of molecular communication will tell us how fast molecular communication can be. From the simulation side also, there is a lot of research in developing simulators, which can help us in understanding and designing the overall systems. There are also some system level analysis. And of course, there is another different domain where people actually implement So they implement the molecular communication. So they talk about experimental methods, the matters to make these things in reality. So let us come to the course content. See, this course is a balance between the various fields such as biology, chemistry, and mathematics, and of course engineering, communication engineering. It may not be possible to talk about all these components in detail. Since this is a communication course, we will have our focus more toward communication and mathematical modeling. But we will see, of course, some application, some actual implementation or some examples of molecular communication from biology and chemistry point of view. But of course, that discussion would be somewhat limited, and we will not go much details about uh, in how about biological system actually work in their minor details. So we will have some introduction of molecular communication, which we had today. Uh, since some of the students may not be aware of communication system, I'll give you a short review of what is communication system and how do we analyze them. We'll talk about the types of binary machines, and we'll see examples of molecular communication in nature and some lab examples also. We will also have a review of random processes because you can think that a chemical signal can be modeled as a random signal. We'll talk about various propagation methods such as diffusion, flow-assisted diffusion, chemotaxis, guided communication, bacterial communication, and motor protein-based communications. And then we'll talk about the mathematical models of these also. And diffusion is one of the propagation method, but it is a very popular one in both from the implementation and the analysis point of view. So we'll spend a significant amount of time on this particular molecular communication. We will give an introduction to diffusion, which is also known as Brownian motion. We will look at microscopic and macroscopic view of diffusion. And we'll talk about how these are related to partial versus stochastic differential equation. We will also see how we can solve the diffusion equations for various scenarios. We'll talk about types of receivers, they are passive and absorbing, and how they affect the solutions and the channel models. Then given these channel characterization, we'll talk about detection at the receiver. Equipped with all these channel probabilities, channel characterization, and detection methods, we will talk about analysis of molecular communication. We'll first take a link level analysis where we talk about one transmitter and another receiver. We'll see different kind of encoding such as time encoding and concentration encoding because they provide a very different view of looking at the communication, the molecular communication. Then we will have more receivers, and you will see that normally in wireless, only transmitter create interference. The receivers do not create interference to each other. But in molecular communication, even receivers can create interference to each other. If you have two receivers, one receiver will affect the performance of another receiver if it is an active receiver. We'll look at the mutual impact of these multiple receivers and how they impact the performance. Then we'll talk about a system with multiple transmitters. And here we will use some tools from spatial process and the stochastic geometry to understand how we can use them to model system with multiple transmitter and compute their performance. Now, we will also talk about the diffusion and the potential or flow-assisted diffusion. Uh, Then we will talk about molecular communication via bacteria. We will learn about how bacteria move, which is a concept related to chemotaxis. We will model it and see some examples of it. We'll also talk about computational biosensors and the target detection problem via molecular communication, where you have lots of computational biosensors thrown in the media. They propagate and detect target on the go. See how we can model them, how we can compute detection probability and performance of the systems. If time permits, we'll also look at molecular programming and self-ascending systems. So molecular programming is a method where you can use molecules to compute different things. You can compute the addition of two numbers or product of two numbers. You can create oscillators out of molecules. So the grading policy is this. Since this course is much more research based, I'll keep the project as 45% of the whole weightage. Here you would have to either read few papers or you can come up with some original research. The midsem will be 10%, endsem will be 15%. There will be regular assignments or quizzes, which will totally be of 15%. And then there is also a component of 15% where you have to scribe one or two lectures. So you have the lectures, video lectures, you have to just write them in LaTeX in a form of notes. So this will be helpful to all the students. These notes will be finally given to all of you. So this will be like you can share each other's effort and we'll have a complete notes of the course. As a reference, I will give you class notes and video lectures, and then you can also refer to some textbooks to learn more. One is Molecular Communication by Nakano and Eckford and Haraguchi. It is by Cambridge University Press 2013 publication. Then there is a edited book which has some chapters which are interesting. Its name is Modeling Methodology and Tools for Molecular and Nanoscale Communication. Modeling methodology and tools. And then there is a freely available chapter, a book, scribed book, which is called Lectures in Theoretical Biophysics. It's a nice reference to learn how to solve differential equations, a partial differential equation, and look at some application of that. We'll cover some small part of stochastic differential equation using the book Berndt-Oakenstel. And then to learn about how to model multiple transmitters, we will have a short tutorial done by me on stochastic geometry. And then there's a significant part which will be directly from the research papers. So to learn more, you may have to directly refer to research papers from which I have taken the material.